College, it'll either be the best time of your life or the reason you declare bankruptcy at only 23. There's no in between. Okay, I'm obviously trolling a little bit on that last part, but as someone who recently graduated, I felt like it was necessary for me to talk about the college experience. And not just any type either, I'm talking about the negative side of things. And this isn't to say that all of college is bad or that my entire time that I spent there was just terrible. Think about it like shining a light on issues that students often face, or kind of like a guide to navigating pitfalls that most college students either have encountered or will encounter at some point. With that being said, let's get right to it. And the first topic we have to talk about is bad teachers. Cause statistically speaking, you will have one of these at some point. That rate my professor can only save you for so long before you realize that last class you need to pass for your major is only being taught by the teacher with 1.4 stars. So sometimes you really just gotta hit the F it we ball. And now you're probably wondering, what exactly makes a college teacher bad? Well, they usually fall under one of these two categories. They're either too strict or just straight incompetent. And on the side of too strict, I know we've all heard that saying, that won't fly in college. But all of us who have actually been to college know that it does indeed fly in college. Going to the bathroom when you want, taking phone calls, eating food, you can do all of that and more, quite literally whenever you want. Because in college, there's this thing called paying to be there, and it's actually very expensive. So while most professors realize that your grade is on you because you're a grown adult, meaning that if you don't show up to class, they don't police you, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's your grade. So while most professors honor this system of treating you like an adult, some just straight up hit you with the no phones. And if your college teacher tells you to put up your phone, yeah, you know exactly what type of timing they're on. And another thing they typically get strict on is attendance. And like I said before, we're all grown adults in college. So we're all coming from completely different home lives. And some of us lived on campus while others commuted from back home. And some of us were pretty young while others of us had whole families. And what I'm trying to get at is there are some teachers who will crucify you for being late, even by a minute. Now, I always understood the late work policies, but one thing I could never get behind was those teachers who would condemn a student for being like 5 to 10 minutes late, even though they were literally commuting. Because usually after doing so, within the next 3 periods, they themselves would be late and look very hypocritical. And the final piece of the puzzle to the strict teachers is the harsh graders. I'm talking to teachers where you could literally submit a pen perfect paper and it still just barely scrapes by with like a C or a B. Now, I guess I would kind of understand if the harsh graders were in like the major classes, because if that was your major and you really wanted to do it, okay, it makes sense. Be a little bit more strict to make sure not just anyone can go into that field. I mean, we've already got people whose degrees should probably say ChatGPT before anything else. But what I'm getting at is, I don't think being a harsh grader actually helps anyone. I mean, from my end, it doesn't help me to constantly see the same grade over and over, even after implementing feedback. And from the teacher's perspective, your job is to teach, so you nitpicking doesn't help the student at all. And as bad as being too strict is, being incompetent is probably equally as bad. Because let's be honest, there are some teachers who just straight up don't know what they're doing. And you definitely experience this less often, but I've definitely seen it. They're the opposite of harsh graders because they just don't grade at all. And that's not to say that all teachers who don't grade on time are incompetent. It's purely just to say that there are some teachers who are not good at their job, and not grading is also one of their attributes. This type of teacher suffers from chronic not grading syndrome. I'm always right even when I've been proven wrong by a student disease. And acute, I'll let that one student who actually knows what they're talking about yap for the whole lesson. Yeah, they have all of those, and I typically think the biggest way it manifests is on tests, because the whole class will swear up and down that the answer was such and such, and the teacher will argue against that answer, even though it will be the exact one they gave you literally a week prior on the study guide. And instead of taking accountability, they just blame it on the study guide itself. Avoid bad teachers at all costs, even if the rate my professor method gets patched. And the next thing that you'll try and avoid like the plague is dining hall food. You'll do your first tour of the university, and once you reach the dining hall, you'll say to yourself, that looks a lot better than high school food. And after being convinced to drop $1,500 on a meal plan, you'll get there day one and say, this tastes a lot better than high school food. You'll go to the dining hall every day except when it's randomly closed on weekends. Until a month in, you realize you've been eating slop this whole time. Pizza, french fries, and burgers. Not a single actual home-cooked meal. So yes, while in theory and in practice, it does taste better than high school food. But the reality of it is, the bar for high school food was so low that just being marginally better made it seem a lot more than what it was. So now, as you struggle to fit in the pants you had bought last year, it's time to start eating healthier. But eating healthier at the dining halls doesn't really mean much, because your choices are limited to a salad bar, which is probably never clean, and even if it is, it tastes horrendous. Some kind of grill station, but it'll somehow always manage to be burnt. And some kind of home style station, but it'll never quite hit the same as what your family can cook. So, with all these options as a no-go, it's time to go to the established food chain on campus, which will be something like a Chick-fil-A, a Starbucks, or maybe even a Subway. However, as you come to realize that it's operated by the school itself, you'll notice that it's staffed almost entirely by student workers. This could either be a good thing if your friends work there, or a terrible thing if you have a bunch of uninterested workers who have a test in an hour. But ultimately, this is better than dining hall food, so you'll keep eating it because it has enough healthy options to keep you going throughout the day that don't taste completely mid. And after getting right back where you need to be health-wise, you'll look down and realize your stomach couldn't be happier, your pants actually fit, and your wallet is begging for help because the meal plan you got only had $150, so you've been spending your own money for months now. You're broke. So that leads us into our next topic, and the next thing you want to avoid like the plague: financial struggles. When you're in college, there's nothing that quite screams financially challenged more than having no meal plan. And if you're someone who lives in the dorms, you'll lay awake thinking about it. And as you contemplate taking out more student loans for an objectively mid meal plan, you'll start receiving notifications from your phone that let you know your current financial status. And with financial burden dwelling on you, it's time to make the dreaded first phone call back home, the one in which you have to ask for money. And it probably won't be the last time you do so, as the list of excuses for why you're broke range from unfortunately having to pay off the last of your tuition that conveniently financial aid and 2 different scholarships didn't cover all the way, or that your teachers made you purchase multiple $50 books that they said were very important, which you wouldn't even have to crack it open once the entire semester. The unfortunate part is your parents probably already paid for both of those things, so you'll just have to come clean with the truth and tell them that you've been spending too much money on food. And after sitting through a 45-minute lecture on financial stability from your parents, they'll give you money but insist that you be responsible with it by getting groceries. And after arriving at your local supermarket and finally walking in, you'll go section by section trying to find the absolute best option possible. But pretty quickly, you'll come to the realization that your parents still think it's the 1990s with the comically low budget that they gave you. So it's no longer your job to pick out the healthiest option, but instead you'll have to pick out the most financially affordable one, which ranges from either getting nothing or these. And there's no in between, because you'll quickly realize that ramen is your only option. And after watching other people with carts full of real nutrition, you'll get in line with your ramen. But you'll never feel great about this purchase because you realize that the food that you're missing out on back home is 1,000 times better than anything ramen could offer. And so as you eat ramen or frozen meals for weeks on end, it won't take long at all for you to see how depressing it is not having money in college. And as depressing as this state of being is, at least you're one of the ones who actually is enrolled in college. Because some of us don't even make it that far because they have to deal with financial aid struggles. These type of students will spend hours upon hours in the financial aid office every day. And if they were actually open past 5 p.m., they'd probably be in there morning, day, and night. But these types of students will spend hours trying to figure out how they're going to pay for college. These are the types of students that you'll see during the drop ad period and then never again. And as sad as that all too familiar story is, it's even more sad for the students who are there for the first semester and then gone the next. And if you live on campus and you're sociable enough, you'll make friends with people just like this. I mean, you'll even get to know them, their experiences, their dreams, and their hobbies as you hang out with them on a day-to-day basis. However, either due to mental health, other pursuits and passions, or the most likely culprit, financial struggles, they'll drop out at some point, leaving you to wonder what happened to them. And as you spend time with your new circle of friends, they'll become a distant memory as you reminisce over your first few years of college, because they were one of the ones who were with you through one of the greatest struggles of your first semester of college, which is the next topic: managing your sleep schedule. When it comes to the issue of sleep, there's quite a few things that can disturb it. And one such thing is an activity that your next door neighbors will do that you'll always be able to hear because of the abnormally thin walls. An activity that seems to only happen from 12 to 3 a.m. that resembles a loud banging sound. Now, what it is, I have no clue. Could be anything, right guys? Another thing could be an abnormally loud pet, which in some cases, you'll be living in a dorm that actually doesn't allow animals. Meaning it's either someone who snuck them in or they're using the easiest excuse, like a layup, of all time, which is that they're an emotional support animal. Which isn't to say that everyone who has an emotional support animal is making an excuse. It's purely just to show that a lot of people are abusing this system. But getting back to it, the next thing that will also distract you from sleeping is having a bad roommate. To be honest though, I really don't mean bad, I just mean someone whose schedule doesn't align with yours. And if you live in a dorm for as long as I did, you'll have plenty of opportunities to see how this goes. For instance, if your roommate is coming in at 1 in the morning while you have an 8 a.m. and potentially bringing in more than just themselves, you're gonna have a hard time sleeping. If they snore a lot, you're gonna have a hard time sleeping. If they happen to be up all night playing Marvel Rivals, you're gonna have a hard time sleeping. All things that are very much possible and probably will happen to you at some point. And how do you avoid all of these things? You don't. Because that'll be a very awkward conversation to have with your roommate, and an even more awkward 2 semesters. Instead, you'll live like this for the next few months and find ways to manage it. However, this means symptoms might include falling asleep in class constantly and end up taking naps throughout the day that will turn to full-on sleep, which will eventually throw off your sleep schedule to the point where every time you stay up late with friends, you'll end up just saying F it and staying up all the way till 7 a.m. only to realize that you are not going to your 9 a.m. if you go to sleep now, so you end up just having to stay up the whole day, only to repeat the cycle over and over and over and over again. And because of this, your grades will likely start slipping, because you can only manage this for so long before you start to crash and burn. So you'll end up having to weigh your options. And you're probably wondering at this point, what are your options? And a YouTuber who I always used to watch named Dom2K put it like this in his podcast: college is really just sacrificing either schoolwork, social life, or sleep. And now that you realize this, you'll see that you only have one choice: to sacrifice like Griffith did to the Band of the Hawk. So, what'll it be? Sleep, grades, or social life? Your pick. And considering the section we're in, you chose sleep. And so the first portion of your college career will be spent trying to figure out how to manage anywhere from 3 to 5 hours of sleep maximum. And though it is a daunting task, you'll soon get over it. Then you'll come to realize that a steady diet of ramen and energy drinks can get you through anything. And when I say anything, I truly mean anything, because even after overcoming all of those hardships, some of you will still have a daunting task looming over your head. Because though while rare, there are some people who still come into college with undecided majors, bringing us to the topic of major uncertainty. So, after spending thousands of dollars to be here, or a more accurate sentiment, your parents spent thousands of dollars for you to be here, you have no clue what you actually want to do. And if you really have no clue what to do, I guess I'll have to give you my guide for picking a major in college. Step 1, you have to assess where you'll be financially with a major like this. This means that any of the political science majors are probably not the correct choice, because more than likely, there's a 0.0001 chance that you actually get into politics, unless your parents happen to be politicians, in which case, why are you in college when you could be blowing their money out in the real world for free? And the next thing you have to consider when choosing a major is making sure you pick something that isn't so hard that it makes you want to yourself. So this means that anything involving you having to take multiple science, math, or engineering classes is completely off the table. And the next thing you'll have to consider is which majors won't be completely obsolete by the time you graduate. Pretty much meaning, and you guessed it, which jobs won't be taken by AI in the future. Which means that I have to say F in the chat and goodbye to all computer science majors. And I'll let you in on a little secret. I actually used to be a computer science major before I switched. But thank God that the Lord Jesus Christ put it on my heart to change my major to something completely different, in which I changed it to English. Okay, and looking back on it now, that probably also isn't the best major. I just got lucky that God allowed me to be pretty decent at writing papers. So in a world where ChatGPT can write you a full essay, you probably also don't want to choose this major. Unless you just want to cheat your way through college, in which this is probably one of the best majors you could possibly choose. In fact, with the rise of AI, the difficulty of most majors has severely decreased, meaning most options that were off the table difficulty-wise are probably still not the worst options you could choose. but only if you just want the degree and don't really care about actually getting a job in that field. Which I can't imagine why anyone would want to actually do this, because this is the biggest possible waste of money. I mean, why get a degree in something you don't even care about if you're just gonna ChatGPT through it anyway? At that point, you could just stay at home for free and learn the information on Google yourself. Which really brings up the question of, why do so many people go to college just to cheat their way through? And I feel like the answer is as simple as something called societal expectations. Pressures from your parents or even your aunts and uncles saying you'll never be anything without college, even though they themselves didn't finish or didn't even go. Or the peers around you who seem to be starting new chapters on campuses far from home. No Spider-Man. Or even from a bunch of celebrities and successful people letting you know that college is the end-all be-all and will magically fix all your problems. But all these pressures are built from societal expectations. And I feel like one of the biggest lessons I learned in my entire time in college, letting other people choose what you should do stops being the best way to live life after you become an adult. Because yeah, I was influenced by my parents and the people around me to go to college. And I even had some of the worst experiences, such as being unsure if I was going to be able to come back due to financial reasons, and various other things weighing down my mental health and raising my anxiety. But college also gave me some of the best experiences of my life, such as allowing me to meet some of my closest friends to this day, finding my passion for YouTube, and even giving my life to Christ. Which is a lot to say that college isn't all good, but it isn't all bad either. So we should make decisions revolving around it the best decision for us, not to please other people. And even if you end up facing all of these issues or even none of them, you should know that college is a huge scam and you should just apply to Streamer University instead. Thank you, the end. Please subscribe.
A scam, then this is a huge scam.